This is Small Business Chronicles, the Swiss Army knife in the business podcast space, where we talk to businesses of all types, shapes, sizes. I'm super excited today because we're chatting with somebody that I think is really specifically valuable for our audience. Again, my name is Brian Stone. I'm a co-host of the show, and today I'm talking with Patrick Dawson. He is with Digital Sharecropper, and really what they do is super unique because the tech space is always moving, it's always changing. So their whole model is built on, instead of fighting change, leaning into it and actually providing a platform for the other businesses that they serve. And he also has seen some key principles that have popped up in a lot of his work that he does that we're going to focus on and talk about today. But I won't delay it anymore. We'll jump right into the conversation. Patrick, how are you today?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So remind everybody else, because I get to chat with everybody before the show. But where are you tuning in from today, and where are you guys based?
My business is based out of Texas, but I'm about an hour from SLC, so I'm in Utah at the moment.
Awesome. And I come from real estate. We were already talking about land, and so I did have to give you a little bit of nod. I thought it was really interesting that we're talking about sharecropping and you're looking for land, and it's definitely a unique name, but it has a lot of purpose behind it. So why did you choose that name? The Digital Sharecropper.
Well, early on when I first got into internet marketing and online business, I kept hearing this term digital sharecropping as though it were a bad thing. But I grew up around farms, so I understood how the model worked. They had co-ops and such, and some of my first jobs were working on a farm. So what I understood is that you had access to something that you couldn't have bought or would have taken a long time to get access to. And so in the digital world, you're getting access to a platform you didn't have to build or a technology you didn't have to build. And I saw it as, if you did it in the right way and you didn't rely entirely on something, it could be quite beneficial if you integrated it into your business.
Well, and let's be honest, businesses change, right? I mean, the market shifts, your client base might shift, so your strategies have to shift with it. So that flexibility that you guys actually give in terms of the access that your clients have to different tools, that's huge in the business space. So tell me a little bit about your journey, though. Why focus on small business? Why focus on online instead of building any other number of businesses that you could have spent your time and effort on?
Well, I actually got my start offline. I was doing real estate investing and sort of the information space there with digital products that more or less it was the 3-ring binder with the CDs and all that type of thing. And it was one of those things where, as much as I like solving a unique problem every single time, there were so many other things you had to be dependent on, so many different factors that had to line up. And I really wanted something where everything lived or died, basically, whether I was being the best that I could be. So I didn't want to have to say, well, this fell apart because some third party didn't do something correctly. I have that sort of mindset where I want everything to be on me. So I wanted to, if I was successful, I knew that it was only because I had put in the effort and the growth and all of that, versus there was some factor outside my control. So I basically made the transition to the digital space because so much more of it could be under my control. And obviously it could allow me to be remote and travel and be not tied to any specific location.
Well, and ownership is huge, right? And I'm sure you read the business book, Extreme Ownership, right? And so you're speaking, the language of business. It all is about taking control of your own future, your own destiny, that flexibility. So, we could talk about that all day long, but I'd love to kind of dive into, some of the principles that you and I kind of discussed offline, because you have the opportunity to have a lot of conversations with a lot of business owners in a variety of different industries. So what are these principles that you're seeing that are needed in every business space?
Yeah, I think there's 3 principles that come to mind. A lot of with my one-on-one work, I tend to notice these recurring themes where there's this focus on some unique tool or some unique strategy is going to make them move forward. And they often are ignoring these basics. And the first one that I usually focus on is bootstrapping. And that can be whether or not you have the funds to implement something. Bootstrapping really causes you to set priorities. and to see what is important right now. There's a lot of stuff that might be important in the future, assuming certain growth patterns. So keeping that in mind, where do I need this now? Is this the right thing? Or am I just falling for the hype of the new fad or some marketing that just happened to make my way? That's really, I think, one of the cornerstones for being successful online is to always maintain that bootstrapping mindset.
Well, I like that you talked about, whether or not you have funding or not, whether or not it's positioning or not, right? Because it's about diving in to make sure that you're making the right decision. Look, there's a lot of disruptors in multiple industries that get a lot of attention because they were first, or they were early enough, or they did something unique in that phase of business. But we don't often talk about the back end of that, which is there's usually a lot of people that try and replicate it, and they're either too late, or they don't have the right strategy, or they're launching at the wrong time. So I love your focus on bootstrapping and making sure that it's the right strategy for the right market. How do you see that show up?
Well, the big one right now is in AI and these AI tools. A lot of people are thinking that AI is going to solve all their problems. And when I started the blog initially, what the newest, greatest thing back then was outsourcing to the Philippines, hiring a VA, and that was going to solve all of your problems. And really, there was this missing element of you need to give good instructions if you're going to outsource something. You need to understand what is good work and what is not good work. So if you're hiring someone to write something for you, but yet you don't have the basics of editing or what is good content, you don't know how to verify that they've done what that you want them to do. And it's the same thing with AI right now, is that people are thinking they can write blog posts, it can do descriptions for things. And if they don't know what a good description looks like or a good blog post looks like, you have no idea of verifying, is this any good? And so that's one of the key spots where I see it pop up the most.
Well, and I'm glad you talked about that because, I think everybody looks at whatever the newest trend is in business, and they think that it is the solution to all of their problems. And it very well may be a solution to a lot of their problems, but you still have to have the proper input, right? Yes. Bad data in, bad data out, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I think that AI in particular, it lacks voice, right? I mean, you as a business owner, you have a story to tell, and it's unique to you. If you were to use the same program as me, and we're both putting out a message, and they are exactly the same, that would be inauthentic.
Exactly, and that goes directly into the next principle that I tend to focus on, which is authenticity. And I think it goes far beyond just being truthful or being who you are. I think it's sort of an all-encompassing personality of your business, your brand identity, everything you're voicing. When you're emulating someone, like you said before, they could have been successful just because they were early, or they could be successful for any number of reasons. And so when you're just emulating what you see on the outside, there's a lot on the backside that you might not see. Maybe their work ethic is much stronger, and that's not what's making them successful. Their persona, it's maybe the amount of work or the team they put in the successful systems they have set up. So I think authenticity, it's being your true self, but also playing to your strengths, seeing where you have areas where you need to outsource and maybe your areas of weakness. It's sort of just doing all that self-discovery to make your business and make yourself the best possible.
Well, and it's so hard to stay authentic, though, especially when you're talking about marketing, because it's so data driven. Because you want to have a return on your investment, right? You want to look at other people that are doing the same industry as you, or doing similar things, and you want to model that. But you can't copy, right?
Right.
And not just for copyright reasons, but because it doesn't land well. I've done a lot of video marketing within the real estate space because that's the industry that I'm in outside of being a host, and I learned really quickly that it doesn't matter that I get the perfect take. It doesn't matter if I misstep or say an or a or miss things. And this is actually partially data driven. People are drawn to authenticity. The super polished content that's out there, that's not attractive to people that know the game, right? I mean, our consumers, our customers, the people that are out there, that whatever your business is you're trying to serve, they know what polished and produced looks like. And most of the time, they'd much rather feel like there's a human being on the other side of the screen, and they're making that eye contact. They want a human connection, so that authenticity is huge. So,
Yeah.
how do you remain authentic while still conveying, that you are credible in whatever it is that you do, though?
Well, I think that's where the basics come into play. You still, with a headliner, you need to grab attention. So it's not as though you're doing something totally unique and different. You're still doing those same things of grabbing the attention, showing them what the benefits are of what your service is or what your business offers. And it's a lot of experimentation, but realistically, there's just basics of getting your message in front of somebody, the right person, and making it compelling. And a lot of those things, it doesn't matter if you use slightly different verbiage or you use a little bit of your own jargon. Like you said, that when they see that there's a human there and it sounds like it was written by somebody and you sort of develop your style, it's really going to stand out.
Well, and it's I'm just thinking back. I mean, the more that we're talking, Patrick, I'm thinking about the brands that are most memorable to me, or the products that stick, and it's always the ones that have their own very distinctive voice, right? Their own very distinctive, authentic personality. So love that. So what? Now we're at 2. So I'm making sure I'm keeping up. That means there's one more thing that you're seeing, another principle that you talk to with some of the clients that you serve. What's left?
Yeah, I feel like once you have understood how to prioritize things with bootstrapping and you're staying true to yourself with authenticity, the next thing I see is structure. And it's sort of a wide principle. It covers a lot. It can be structuring your day, how you structure your business, your systems and processes, how you structure content. There's this quote that I like. It says, structure is more important than content in the distribution of information, or something like that. I think it's an Abby Hoffman quote that I butchered, but it's like you're saying, the best product doesn't always get to market. It's the product with the better systems. That's the product that you see. I mean, the fast food out there, it's not high quality food, but they have better systems than these smaller shops that is going to offer something a lot better for you. So
yeah, it's the same thing every single time, same product. Yeah,
exactly.
It's repetition.
That consistency, they know exactly what to expect. And I think a lot of what we do in online business, it's having that consistent workflow. So I know when I create a piece of content, for instance, I know exactly what I'm doing from start to finish. It's always going to have a similar formatting, a similar look and feel, similar voicing. So it takes a lot of the guesswork. So if you come to my blog, you know what you're going to get, basically. You know that there's not going to be any fluff. It's going to be short and to the point. I'm going to give you sort of the tools to reverse engineer it for your specific business rather than give you some exact follow in my footsteps. It's sort of, here's the important things that you need to build into your own system. And I think that's a lot what structure brings. And like I said, it's everything from scheduling your day to the different processes you have in your business.
Well, and that's that. Look, I know everybody understands that, but I know I have entrepreneurs like myself that are listening to the show, and they're like, you know what? I'm an entrepreneur, and that means I'm really good at pushing forward with a lot of energy and leaving an absolute chaos behind me with absolutely zero infrastructure. So, for the solopreneur that knows they need structure, but doesn't know where to start, I mean, what's the best place for them to start to get a handle on their business?
I mean, the way I look at it is there's things you're going to be doing over and over. And if you're going to do it more than once, you need some sort of process or method of doing it. And so if you start with tasks where you do all the time, you just get clear on what are the steps from start to finish. And you sort of paper that up or put that into a tool so that you know, next time I do this thing, I can just glance at the screen and it'll tell me exactly what I need to do, and let those processes live in a tool or on paper somewhere rather than live in your head, because you get this decision fatigue where you have to think of these small things that are insignificant, but it adds up over time. So by the end of the day, you're making poor decisions, or you're focused on the wrong thing, or you're procrastinating. And so I think starting with those things, the things that take you a lot of time or the things that are complex, those things are what you need to get out and get a process for. So that way that complexity lives in some tool you're using or in a checklist or something like that.
I mean, I'm glad you mentioned decision fatigue, because you're exactly right. That structure is the prescription to prevent all that exhaustion. That's I was in another conversation with another guest a while back, and we talked a lot about burnout, right? And that burnout comes from, as you said it, decision fatigue. I've experienced that. I know every small business has, because when you're everything and everything lives up here, it's really hard. And look, I'll be honest. This is a quote we've been kind of kicking around here. Um, if everything in your systems and your processes and everything in your work is stored in your head and is not in a documentable, repeatable system, you're not making yourself irreplaceable. You're just making yourself unscalable and unpromotable.
Exactly.
Because, oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I got all this when I first started in business. I read a book called The E-Myth. And that was the whole point, is that you're trying to replace yourself with systems. And I think even if you're not planning on replacing yourself, if you want to be a solopreneur and you like what you do, those systems will make your day flow easier, and it will take away that decision fatigue.
Well, and E-Myth, great book. Definitely got that on my shelf back at home. But you're right. I mean, it's not just about removing that decision fatigue. Sometimes it's, hey, can I take a vacation? Or what happens, if somebody, I'm not able to access, somebody's work. If you have an employee that is out sick, or, loses access to, or a salesperson that loses access to their phone for a couple days until they get back to the, the dealer or whatever. Do you have a systemized way to make sure that all of those tasks, while it may be a little bit, less efficient, we know where they live, we know when they happen, we know how they're done, and it can be as simple as documenting and taking a screen share of something that you're doing on a repeatable basis, right?
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of what we do. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of what we do when we're working with people is help them exactly make a process, find out what they need to get out of their head, and prioritize it. So it is living somewhere else in case either they aren't able to do it and they need to hand it off to somebody, or like you said, one of those things where the technology goes down and you don't know. You got the deer in headlights look, where I have to do something now and I can't figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been remind me. So you guys have been you've been around for 10 years. So tell me a little bit about where you're going. I'd love to know your vision for where you see the business landscaping changing, and what advice you might have for business owners that are within our current landscape.
Well, 10 years ago, I started it was basically a personal blog where I was sort of narrating stuff I was attempting to do and figuring it out in real time. And I've since built several online businesses, and the digital sharecropper is where I sort of put out to the world, this is what is working in other businesses I'm working on. So this is sort of this is what actually works, and this is how I do it. And there's been so much change, and it's actually accelerating now, so that so much of what we did even just a year ago is outdated or needs to be updated. And so what we're doing now with our site is we're looking to expand it and bring on other voices, because I only have one perspective and I've only had so many experiences. And I feel like there's some areas where people could learn from a particular technique or strategy that I'm not employing in my business. And so I just want to have some more well-rounded stuff. But yeah, the technology landscape is moving very quickly. But if you really think back to the basics, like the basics of marketing, the basics of structuring your business and your procedures, these things don't change very much over time. Some of the best marketing and advertising books come from like the 1930s. So if you have those basics down, you're going to be able to thrive no matter what's changing.
Well, yeah, you have to have your foundation, your structure, right? Is one of the principles that we talked about. So, and I love the spirit that we have on this show with our guests, because one thing that I've found is, regardless of industry, people in business do genuinely care and want to benefit and prop up and help other businesses. And I love the vision you have for getting more perspectives, growing into to that ever-changing landscape, in particular the digital landscape. You mentioned something on your site, actually. I think it's in the About page, that kind of sums that up. You talked about the fact that there is a risk associated with sharecropping, right? And that's part of part of why you have that front and center is to be mindful of that change and what risks are involved when you're dealing with a business that changes and moves. So you want to talk to that a little bit and kind of your purpose behind that statement.
Yeah, I actually got the inspiration from Richard Branson's autobiography. And he always talked about whenever he started a business was to protect the downside. Is like when he did the airline, he leased the planes and had the ability to get out of them rather than finance them. So everything we do, I sort of take this mindset of it can go bust and I'm not going to be hurt. So understand that if I jump onto a new platform and I start putting a lot of effort there, I don't have this ongoing cost. I don't have this ongoing commitment that I can walk away if I need to. And so some of that is about the financial capital you invest, but a lot of it is knowing that if I invest into a platform, my time on that platform might be wasted, but the content I produce and the other things are not wasted. It can be repurposed and put somewhere else. So I like to go front and center with assume things are going to die out, new things are going to grow, things are going to change a little bit here and there. And just, like I said, focus on if you're making the good content, if you have a good business sense, it won't matter exactly where you have to direct those. If there's some other platform you have to get onto or something slightly different you have to do, you're still going to succeed.
I love that mindset, that agility, right? Mm-hmm. That agility in finance, that agility in strategy. That's so important in the small business space. A good example of that, I'll give a personal example. I've gotten burned more than once on the attractive annual discounts for this new tech system that I want to implement. And I'm like, oh, well, it's I'm going to save, 5 or 10 or 20 or $50 a month, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. By buying a whole year. It only, I'm sorry that it took more than one, but it only took a few times of me doing that, using that system for 3 or 4 months and then realizing that it wasn't a fit for the market, for me to learn that is not the kind of agility that I want in my budgeting and my expenses and my strategy. So there's real truth to what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, look, hey, I know that we're getting close to the end of our time, and I really appreciate you, talking business with me, Patrick, sharing your insights, those principles that you're seeing. But I also want to give you an opportunity to, put yourself out there in terms of how our listeners can connect with you, because I know there's more value that you can provide for our listeners than just the 20 minutes that we've got on the clock.
Yeah, all of my work is available at digitalsharecropper.com. I try to put everything I find useful into blog posts where you can just take the information and use it yourself. I do have one-on-one work you can do. It's on the site. I'm working on some courses, a Create Better Content course, video course. And so, like I said, everything's at the website.
Awesome. Thank you again for sharing. Thank you for your time, Patrick. And guys that are listening, thank you for listening to another business story. This podcast is really intended to share stories in business of all levels, and I really appreciate you staying tuned and listening to Patrick's story and his thoughts on business in general. And look, do all the podcast stuff if you enjoyed it, if Patrick resonated with you, if you heard some things that were valuable, make sure you let us know. We're always looking to increase the value that we provide. And keep in mind, this show is produced and sponsored by Titan Media Works. So if you have any podcast production needs, if you have guest booking that you want to get on other shows within our network or outside of our network, we have a database of 350,000 shows that we connect our guests with. So make sure that you reach out if you have any interest in that. So until next time, make sure you keep that entrepreneurial spirit alive. And this has been another episode of Small Business Chronicles. Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks.